Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike from M&R Automotive. Today we have this 2022 GMC Sierra 2500. We installed the dual 40-inch light bar kit, one in white and one in amber. First thing we're going to do is pop the hood and remove the 9 push pins on top. The way you remove these is just put the screwdriver underneath the tab, pop the tip up, and then they should come out freely. Just like that. I'm going to put these away. Now that we got all the push pins, now the last thing we need to do is take out the 2 Torx screws on top to be able to remove the actual latch, and then the whole plastic trim piece should go up. We're going to take this latch out by using a T15 Torx tool. So when you take out the 2 screws, you just slide the handle forward and it completely comes off. Now we can go ahead and lift the top plastic trim piece and completely put it to the side. Next thing we're going to do is remove the 4 10mm screws on top. Alright, next thing we have to do to get this grill loose, we got to take off these end pieces, the face plates. What we're going to do, we're going to pop this up, the fender flare, and there's a screw here that we're going to be taking it out, and then they'll be able to just clip off. Let's see what we can start off with. Alright, next thing we're going to do is take out a 7mm bolt that's hiding behind this trim piece. It's a 7mm socket, and that's going to separate the fender from the bumper caps. Okay, put this out to the side. Next we're going to do is take out these 2 T15 screws from the inner fender. That's 1. That's 2. Follow me to the other side, the passenger side. We're going to do the same thing we did on the driver's. So go ahead and pry this open first. Just use your fingers and your thumb to press up against the body panels. The only thing this is held on is just white plastic pins, and you'll see it as I'm removing them. You need 1 more in order to get access to that side screw. Okay. Oops. And it is a 7mm. Got the 7mm screw out. Now we're going to get the T15 screws from the inner fender. There's 2 of them. Once we remove those inner bolts, we can actually put a pry pin in here, pry tool in here, and just prop these 2 pieces together. And that's going to allow us to kind of start unclipping. See? And all just held on top are these grooves. So when you pop these open, kind of work your way and prop it down. And there we go. Some of these pins, when you take them out, they are capable of breaking. So you can pick these up at your local hardware store. It's just a clip, you take it out, and you can replace it with a different one. So we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. First thing we're going to do is separate the 2 parts like that. See, and that already unclips probably the bottom one. Now I'm going to get my fingers underneath it and just pry outward and down. No. Doesn't want to budge. Okay. What I can do, you can put a screwdriver in here without scratching anything and try to pry it against itself. See, got the second one out. Now we just need one more. One more on top. And one clip right here. Okay. Yeah, so now that we got the two side caps opened, you can just pull on the grill, detach it from the top clips. There's a couple of clips on the bottom. We can just grab on it and kind of just pull slightly to unclip it. There you go. Now there's one wiring harness here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to press the button and take out the harness. So just press on the red button and pull up. So after you remove the wiring harness, that's how you pretty much remove the grill. The last thing you have to do is just pretty much get it off the vehicle. These are the brackets that you get with the GMC Sierra 2500 kit. You get a driver and a passenger side bracket, and every light bar will get 2 mounting bolts and 2 washers. You don't need any additional hardware to attach the M&R brackets to the vehicle because we're going to be reusing the same hardware that we take out. Notice that the mounts are slotted for different height adjustments. We did that in order to compensate for different type of grille design. Let me show you how to go ahead and install it. We're going to go ahead and do the passenger side first. There's a plastic trim piece. Put a screwdriver in there and kind of pry the push pins out. It comes out fairly easy. I'll show you how these push pins look like when you take them out. So we're going to take this one out too, because they're going to interfere with our M&R bracket. I mean, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we're just taking out the 2. There's also one that's really up high and it's impossible to get to unless you take out the headlight, so we're not going to worry about it. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to prop this out of the way. Get it around the harness. And then you'll see 2 bolts here. The one we're going to use for the light bars brackets would be the top one. So we're going to take it out. It's a 10mm. We're going to slide the M&R bracket through it and we're going to reinstall it. Now that we've taken out the factory bolts, use the provided washers in order to mount the M&R bracket. What we're going to do is feed the washer through the factory bolt. It's going to also be fed through the M&R bracket. Now we're going to go ahead and mount it back onto the vehicle. We'll go around the plastic trim piece. We'll align everything. And keep in mind, we're also only hand tightening this until we get the light bars in. There we go. We're going to do the same thing on the driver's side. I'm going to go ahead and pry this open. And these are the little push pins that I was talking about. You just take them out. That's one. And the second one after we prop this plastic trim piece off, we're going to go ahead and remove the top bolt. And we're going to reuse that top bolt to feed through the M&R bracket. So here we go. It's a 10mm bolt. Once you've taken out the factory bolt, we're going to go ahead and feed it through the M&R supplied washer. And we're going to go ahead and mount it to the bracket using the same hardware. We're going to go ahead and finger tighten it just so that way we can do the final adjustment after we get the light bar into the bracket. So now we're going to go ahead and install the light bar in between the M&R mounts. We're going to go ahead and install it on the middle slot of the grill. We'll install it and then we'll put the grill back on to mock it up and see if we got the alignment correctly before we make the final tie downs. Now that we got the first light bar in, let's go ahead and install the second. So we're going to do the same thing on the same bracket. Now that we got it mounted, let's go ahead and install the grill back on, so that way we can see if it aligned perfectly with the openings. I think this side has to be brought down a little bit. This is exactly why the M&R bracket has a rail system, so you could adjust the light bars up or down. Even if you wanted to, you could install a light bar in this opening. After installing this one, we realized that we have to pick up this end a little bit higher, so that way it's right down the middle of the bottom. The only thing is you can't put a light bar in here because of the without any extra trimming, so we made a rail system from the bottom to the middle slot. So you can use 1, 2, or 3. That's the one you can choose through. Alright, now we can tighten everything and start buttoning everything up back to factory look. We routed the light bar wiring right around, zip tied it here so that way it doesn't interfere with the louvers. We passed it along the headlight, and here's the power cable up top. For this installation, we're going to be using a generic wiring harness that we got on Amazon. We're going to put a link in the description. What it comes with actually a double-sided tape switch module with 2 buttons and 2 controls for 2 power sources. It comes with its own relays and fuses. The red is the positive of the wiring harness. It's going to go on the positive of the battery terminal. The black is the ground. You can either ground it on the chassis or the negative of the battery. Now that we're getting ready for wiring, I'm trying to figure out a way to pass through the trigger cable for the power button inside the cab. Is drilling through the firewall and feeding that wire through it. Using a location to get the pass wire for the button itself. We're going to cut the boot that's around the steering column. It's made out of rubber. You can use a razor blade or some scissors just to puncture through it. The next thing I like to do is put some needle nose pliers through it so I can feed it from the engine bay, grab it, and pull it through the hole. I'll show you exactly how I do it. So here I wanted to show you where I went through the firewall. This is the steering column. I went to the side of it. And let me get some better lighting. I went to the side of it, and then I put the scissors through. And I'm going to show you guys where it comes out from the other end. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put some needle nose pliers through here so that way I can grab the plug from the engine bay and feed it into the cab. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the buttons from the wiring harness. We're going to feed this through the engine bay through the firewall, and then we're going to go ahead into the cab afterwards and connect them back up. So theoretically the only diameter that we're going to have to squeeze in through the firewall is this. I did make an incision into the boot of the steering column so that way we can squeeze this in and use the same. So I went ahead and put my needle nose pliers into the slit opening of the boot. I'm going to go ahead and spread them, and somebody on the other end is going to feed me the plug so I could pull it through.
Put your pliers, yeah. Okay, clamp. Okay, now pull. Keep going.
Okay, I see it. I gotta turn it when I...
The hole was just
there you go.
small.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled the wire through. So that's gonna be the wire that goes to the button. So now we have the little pigtail from which one we've went through the firewall. We're gonna go ahead and connect it to our buttons. And the buttons can be installed inside the cab somewhere here. The easiest way to mount these, it comes with double-sided tape. You can go ahead and secure it somewhere here on the pillar. The wire gets ran through the side and underneath the bottom. We'll cover this up. Beautiful. So now we'll use double-sided tape and get 2 switches here in the corner. Let's go connect everything in the engine bay. So I want to show you where the wire's coming out from the boot. It's right here next to the steering column on the side. I don't know if you can see this or not. So this is the wire that turns the relay on and off. You can feed it through the side. Here's the relay itself. And off of the relay, there's 2 things that we have to do. First thing we have to do is worry about the power and the ground. So we can ground it here and extend the the power wire to the battery. All right, so a couple things I'm going to do. So let's say my relay is going to be in this location, and I'll zip tie it a little bit later. I'm gonna ground it here. We're gonna ground this here. And now the power wire, we're actually going to clip off. We're going to extend this wire and carry it all the way to the battery. I'm going to strip it. So here's the wire that we're going to be using. We'll extend it using 12 gauge wire. We'll put a crimp connector on it. We're going to connect our 12 gauge wire to the wire supplied by the hardware, by the harness. And we're going to go ahead and feed this around. So we're going to probably end up running it like this across underneath all the trim pieces. We'll zip tie later, so I'll probably need this length. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I went ahead and cut it. I'm going to strip it, and on this end of the wire I'm going to go ahead and put an eyelid so that way it can go onto the battery terminal. There we go. Let's see where we're going to connect it to. So we can take this cover off. And there's a couple places we can get it. Okay. So we're going to remove this. We're going to feed this through. And that's how we're going to get power to the wiring harness. Okay. Now we're going to zip tie all this stuff, put this back on, a protective cover. Now the last thing that's left is connecting the power and the ground cable from the wiring harness to the light bar. Let's see how we're going to feed these wires. I'm going to show you guys how to connect two light bar wires to a generic wiring harness using two different switches. So our light bars have a red and black wire. We're going to fuse the two black wires together because we're going to ground them to the same wire. On the wiring harness side, there's three wires. So there is a black wire, which is the ground. So we're going to go two of the black wires to the black wire on the wiring harness. Then there is the other two colors are the two power switches. So this is switch number 1 and this is switch number 2. So theoretically, we're going to go two blacks to one black, then we're going to go red to red, and then we're going to go the other red to white, and then we'll be able to have two different switches independently controlling our light bars. So after fusing the two grounds together, I'm going to throw a crimp connector on there, and I like to double crimp it just in case, so that way they don't come out. I use a heat gun after all the wiring has been completed and tested to waterproof all the connectors. Okay, so that's one of the power wires, and this is going to be the second one. So with our grounds connected, we have 3 wires from the 2 light bars, and we have 3 wires from the wiring harness. So we'll go ahead and connect those as well. So we agreed that our blacks are going to be connected to the black wire from the wiring harness. So our blacks to this black, crimp it once, crimp it, and then our red is going to go to red, crimp it once, crimp it twice, and then the other red cable we're going to put with the white cable on the wiring harness. Crimp it once, crimp it, twice. So theoretically now everything should be connected. Let's go ahead and test the switches. So this is switch number 1, and it powers the white light bar. And this is switch number 2, which powers the amber. This concludes the wiring for 2 light bars. We're going to go ahead and put a heat gun onto our connections to waterproof everything, put a couple of zip ties, and get everything back to normal. Thank you for watching.